So it is just 1 o'clock. That we are expecting a few more people. Actually, a lot of people registered for this. So I'm going to let this go for like a minute or two while the waiting room keeps dinging. Is everyone hearing the dinging, or is that just in my own head? You're all hearing the dinging. Excellent. Okay. Go dinging. It's the little Zoom doorbell. You gotta love that. The waiting room doorbell, as you can hear, is different than the regular doorbell. So welcome everybody, rabbis, cantors, educators, whoever you are, wherever you are across the country. We're gonna get to that in a moment. It is lovely to be able to see all of you in this online world that we have now embarked on, and not because we necessarily wanted to, but here we are nonetheless. My name is Pam Barkley. I am the Director of Strategic Implementation at Moving Traditions. I am involved in all of the training we do, as well as running our B'nai Mitzvah program. I am joined here by Daniel Brenner, Rabbi Daniel Brenner, who, wave your hand, I don't know where he is in your Zoom. He's the first box in mine. He has been in the midst of this B'nai Mitzvah program since its inception. It was his kind of invention. As well, I am joined by Sarah Fox, who I don't know where she went, but she's somewhere here. There she is. Okay. Sarah, she disappeared, who is the co-host, as you heard me talk about, of the Zoom at the moment, and will be in and out of this Zoom. Is that correct, right? You're on now, and then she will disappear, but she's with us now, so I just want to acknowledge and thank her for all of her work on getting this all set up. I know there's still probably more people. I'm at 2 pages worth of people. I'm sure several of you are too, so, take a look through, see who's come, all that kind of fun stuff. And what I would like to, where is it? There it is. So as you are looking around, here's what I would love you all to do what it says on the screen, which is in the chat. Put your name, because we're too many people to do it out loud, your name, your organization, and its location, and one creative, meaningful, could be giant, it could be teeny tiny thing that you have seen a family do around B'nai Mitzvah since the pandemic began. Like, what's something where you were like, wow, that was cool. Doesn't have to be something you invented, or it could be something you invented, however you want to look at that.
I'm not the only ones with that video. Happy to set it up.
So just put that all into the chat so we all know who's here.
We did it last night.
I hear typing.
It's awesome. Delish.
All right. I'm going to work for probably about 15 minutes. I'm trying to write my rabbi's article on.
Oh, they're coming in fast and furious now. Ooh. Rebecca Goodman, we passed the Torah Yad through the Zoom boxes from the educator. Can you explain that a little more? I want to hear more.
So when you have the big grid of everybody, wait, that's not the grid on my screen. Why do I have only 6 people in my grid? Okay.
Because I'm sharing my screen with
right, now I got it back. So so right now you're right next to me. Right, so right now you're right next to me on this side, my right.
Yep.
So if I were to pass the yad, I hand it over to you, but the mom already had the same box with a yad in it at the house. So then they were able to grab it from their side of the screen, and it just looked really, really cool.
Ooh, like an optical illusion.
Yeah, Yeah.
That's so cool.
Like we could do it with a pen right now. If we all pick up a pen, we could pass it across
Right,
the screen.
I got it.
Like the wave at a you know, at sports arenas that we're not going to.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Thank you. Except now I haven't read any more. Daniel, did you read any more that you want to hear more about?
I mean, I'm interested to hear about anybody who facilitated bringing a Torah to someone's home and what came, you know, all the things around that. I'd love to just hear a little bit about how that's changed what one does in terms of B'nai Mitzvah.
Well, I can say something. Is that okay for us to just jump in like that?
Go for it.
Yes, please. Just say who you are and wait so we can see you, so everyone can find you.
Oh, wait. You know what? I have my video off. No. Hi. I'm Shoshana Tornberg, and I'm in Abington, Pennsylvania. And so our amazing executive director literally just brought the Torah in her car to people's homes. And then part of the rehearsal process was figuring out where the Torah was going to go when it was going to be read and how it was going to be on camera. So I had one situation where the younger sister played around with basically Torah cam. So she set up, there was the place that the kid was leading the service from primarily, and the parents were there on screen, and the kid was on screen, and the siblings were on screen. But then when it came to Torah, they had it set up so that the kid set it up so that you could see the letters upside down, but you had this view of the actual text as the kid was pointing at the letters and reading through it. Which you know
how they did that?
It was just a matter of the younger sister played around with where the camera would go during the rehearsal, and they set it up in a separate. It wasn't on the same table that they were doing the rest of the service, so they were able to, stage it in advance.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Shelley Drucker-Friedman from Emmanuel Congregation, and we made our own ritual around the drop-off. So I put the Torah in my car, and the family put out on their front stoop a quilt from their house or something, a meaningful piece of fabric. And they filmed me bringing the Torah to the child who was standing in the window, about to receive Torah in their Sinai moment. And the Torah was then placed on to the quilt standing up. A family member came out, sometimes with sanitizer, and looked at the Torah, right, exactly. And then I watched the Torah be delivered to the child in the window.
Very cool. I got chills. That's so cool. You could think of what that quilt might be for that family, right? I don't know. I'm thinking the baby blanket I brought my child home from the hospital in, right? That kind of moment. That has all sorts of possibilities. Really cool.
It's Rachel Weiss at Jewish Reconstructionist Congregation in Evanston, Illinois. We similarly have done that where we take an object, or our first family literally said, well, our son had his bris at this dining room table, and now our daughter's becoming bat mitzvah around this space. So it was a ritual of sort of naming that the space at home gets sanctified. It's the idea that objects can ascend in holiness rather than and then can't descend, so that there's a different layer of holiness around your family dining room table where you might have dinner on it tomorrow night, but know that there was something transformative and that table actually holds that space and holds that memory in addition to the people who were there. That was one piece. The other piece on the Torah cam is that we actually have a member of the congregation has a photograph of the Torah reading and a yad. And so while the Torah is being read, we spotlight that person following along where the camera is following the Torah reading. So there's a spotlight of someone who's doing the following. While the kid is chanting, it also gives an honor or a nod to a member of the congregation, not a member of their family, but as a way to make it a little bit broader communal.
Cool. That's very cool. Look at all the amazing things everyone has done. Pretty incredible, right? This moment, how, necessity is the mother of invention, how people are, creating different kinds of sacred space from their dining room tables or their backyards or wherever that might be. Anyone else have something they thought was really cool? Because I don't think I can read all of these at the same time really fast, that they want to share, or something they heard that they thought was cool?
I have something to say.
Go ahead.
Sure, Weinglad from B'nai Tzedek.
Okay, I'm Aliza, and the way we have it, I bring the Torah. We try to have the service outdoor with just the immediate family, and everyone else is on Zoom. And I put the portion directly from Torah into the Siddur itself. So, and I put it on the screen, and then everyone can follow what the child is chanting on the screen.
Nice. Very nice.
It is nice.
Yeah. I also want to note, this is kind of the idea that I've heard about people doing, but never like actually like, here's someone who did it, from Beth Tikva, Ronnie or Roni, I don't know how you pronounce your name, I'm sorry. Handler, about the family actually, if there's enough people in the family, like lifting the child in a chair just in their living room, just so they have that moment, you know, enacting what would have happened at celebration. Kind of cool. So you all have been extraordinarily, you've seen creative things. What we're looking to do is help lead up to that moment, whatever that is. That's what Moving Traditions does. But we're going to back up a little bit and talk about how we got there. What is the philosophy of our program? What is going on for kids at this age and the parents of the kids of this age? That's what Moving Traditions focuses on. And so to start us off, what I want to do is actually, let's say, get you in your teenage self head. How's that? So I want you for like a minute to think about yourself as a as your average 12 or 13-year-old in your own life and what that was like. And I know some of you might be like, oh my God, I don't want to think about that, but you're going to think about that for like a minute. And then you are going to go to, I've just put into the chat, a Padlet. If you've never seen Padlet, no worries. Click on the link. You'll be going away from Zoom, but that's fine. You can always come back to it. Just click on the Zoom icon. And I want you to go to the Padlet and do what it says, which is as follows. When you were 12 or 13 years old, there are many pictures here. Look through the pictures and find the one that most connects to your experience. Which one most resonates for you, for whatever reason. And then you're going to write a comment about that, like why you picked that picture. Unless you are a Padlet user that's currently logged in, your responses will be anonymous to all of us, just so you're aware. But if you are someone who has been logged into Padlet today, you will come out with your name. Just letting you know. So I see some of you are liking them. I'd love you to add a comment of why you picked what you picked in the comment section. And, you know, as many people as want can choose the same one.
I'm not sure how to get there.
So if you look at the, on the right-hand side in the chat, do you see the chat? I pasted from Pam Barkley to everyone. There's a Padlet link. You can just click on that link and it will take you directly to the Padlet.
Thank you.
No problem. Resonates why? There's a question in the chat. So that's what I'm asking you to write. Like, why does that one resonate? Like, if you pick one, why? And people are writing this in already. I picked this one because I like to be in front of the room, I see someone said. I picked this one because I lived at camp as a kid. That's the answer you're giving. Does that make sense? And once you're done writing your answer to whichever one you decided to pick, there are no right or wrong answers to this. Once you're done picking the one you picked, certainly do what I've been doing, which is taking a little, like, you know, gallery walk, but we're not walking anywhere, walk with your eyes around this Padlet and see what people wrote. And one of the interesting things about pictures, I'm going to zoom out for a second, is that they're obviously all projections, right? So we like to use things like Padlet for using photos in our B'nai Mitzvah curriculum because it allows us to all interpret it as we'd like to. So if you look at in the second row of pictures, there's a girl sort of staring, looking out the window. One person wrote they picked that because they were trying to figure out how to make meaning out of life. Another person picked it because they were shy and self-conscious, right? Like, those are not the same things. People look at pictures and put their own meaning into it. And for teenagers in particular, that can be very, very powerful. And for parents, of course, we're all grown-ups here. For grown-ups, that can be very powerful as well. So if you look through, you're going to see different answers to, not different answers, different comments that reflect a different meaning from what you're seeing on the picture, right? You might have looked at a photo differently. I'm trying to find another example of that. So the very first photo, someone wrote, I was all about being an achiever and thrived on performing well. And someone else said I was a serious student and felt best about myself, right? It means something different to all of you. I'm still reading all of them. Anyone else see another one that they think is interesting that has two different meanings from the same photo? Okay, go back.
I love that someone sees camp and music as spiritual.
Yeah, yeah. So this is just an example of something that we actually do in our curriculum, using a Padlet as a way of inviting people into a discussion or a reflection about themselves, parents in particular, when they were 12 or 13 years old, because that is, you know, that's the mindset we're coming from in Moving Traditions, that you have a 12 or 13-year-old in front of you, you were a 12 or 13-year-old, here is a moment in time, and let's really unpack what that's about. What was that for you? What is that for your child? What is that for you now as a parent of a newly 12 or 13-year-old? And how does that impact the family dynamic that's going on? And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Daniel.
Wonderful. So I love hearing all of the different ideas around how people are doing Zoom B'nai Mitzvahs right now. And I also just appreciate people reflecting for a second on their teenage lives. What I am tasked to do in the next 10 minutes is to talk a little bit about our pedagogic perspective on what it means to be B'nai Mitzvah. So talk a little bit about the psycho-spiritual and developmental process of 12-year-olds. And also talk a little bit about the, I would say, Jewish grounding of our work, where we really focus our energy in terms of helping people understand the spiritual and religious significance of B'nai Mitzvah. So before I get started on all of that, and even before I even speak about our mission, I want to talk a little bit about just my own history in terms of thinking about all of these things. I pulled a book from my shelf that I got from my—
And I will stop sharing.
And here it is. You can see these beautifully enthusiastic men, young man, and these other men. I mean, this is just like, I can't believe I still have this book, but it's one of the books that my parents said, do you want to keep this book? And I was like, oh, I kind of do. But it just represents for me a old paradigm about B'nai Mitzvah in which a boy becomes a man and is surrounded by these other men. It just reeks, it smells and reeks of patriarchy in every possible way, this book. And then I started to think about what did I learn when I was in rabbinical school, so many years ago. And we had maybe about 45 minutes where we talked about teenagers. And what did we talk about? We talked about H. Stanley Hall's theories in 1906 about teenagers and the independence of teenagers and how they were turning against their parents and all of this stuff. And it has only been after that I've realized that not only have we learned a tremendous amount about teenagers and their development in the last 30 years, but we have also seen a different generation come up. And I just want to say a little bit about what we're paying attention to now when we're thinking about what it means to become a teenager, because I think that's really important. So there are really 3 different psychologists that I want to reference. And then I want to talk a little bit about what we know about today's 13-year-olds. So the 3 psychologists I want to talk about are, number 1, Bradley Sachs, who wrote in 2001 an incredible book called The Good and the Child. And the basic premise of that is that when you become a teenager, the central activity of your life is mourning your childhood, grief for your childhood. And the core element of that grief is a feeling of loss, that you don't have some of the feelings that you loved as a child. So you don't have the same kind of intimacy and closeness of a parent reading a bedtime story to you. You don't have the same to feel like you're doing things for the first time, and it's exciting that you're doing things for the first time. And you also just have this sense that a lot of the things that you loved as a child, like ordering off of a child's menu or going to a park and playing in the playground, are things that are being taken away from you. So Bradley Sachs talks about this period of grief that the child is going through, and then he parallels that with thinking about the period of grief that the parents are going through, that they've lost their child. They feel like the cuddly thing that they could once relate to as a child is no longer in their lives, and now they have someone who is challenging their authority in some cases, or someone who wants their own private time in other cases. And so that's the first insight, that there is something going on in terms of loss and grief that we should pay attention to. The second psychologist that really influenced a lot of our work and thinking was a psychologist by the name of Sandra Bem, and she really did most of her work in the 1980s at Stanford University. And Sandra Bem was one of the first to talk about gender identity development in adolescence as being the core task of adolescence. And in her phrase, and she used the words gender schema to describe what teenagers are focused on, she says that it is common at this age to look at people who share your gender identity and say, do I act like them? Do I dress like them? Do I walk like them? Do I dance like them? Do I present like them? And that gender lens, looking at others and then looking at yourself, is the core developmental stage for a teenager. And that is true even in a world with multiple gender identities. It's not just with the binary genders, but anybody is looking and saying, are other trans masculine teens like me? Are other non-binary queer teens like me? Are other girls like me? Are other boys like me? So those questions become really core, particularly as a child enters into the teen years. And then the third psychologist that we're going to be looking at her work in a little bit is Ray Simpson. And Ray Simpson was part of the Harvard Parenting Project, now is working at MIT. But Ray Simpson really describes the tasks of contemporary adolescence in a really exceptional way. And we're going to look at a one slide at least that shows Ray Simpson's work and talk about that. And the other thing I want to mention before we get into this other stuff, really important, is we have learned a tremendous amount both from the work of Susan Twenji, who's looked at teenagers and their online activities, and also from a recent study by the Wendy Rossov and her group in the Jewish world. And what they learned is that teenagers are enjoying spending time with their parents, and teenagers see their parents as friends who they talk to about their personal issues. And this is a generational shift. Now, this is pre-pandemic. Now they can't stand each other. No, but what we do know is that today's Jewish teenagers report that one of the sources of their Jewish pride and one of the things they love to do is celebrate Jewish things with their parents. And that is profoundly different than what was before. So all of these things are in the back of our minds as we're thinking about what does family education mean for this moment? And what should we be thinking about when we're thinking, like, what do teens really need to talk with their parents about? And what do parents really need to learn about their teens and the generation that their teens are in? So with that, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint and quickly go through some of these, some of the other things that we have here. Just want to highlight that in our mission, we really focus on self-discovery and personal growth as the pathway. What is Judaism for us? It's not simply about replicating tradition, but it's about a toolkit for personal growth. We have a very musar perspective on what we do, and that's really core. It's in our mission and it's in our work. And I want to just go to the next slide, which talks a little bit about some of the educational theories that we're focused on. And two of them are in particular, I'm going to take a very quick second to talk about. And those two are social emotional learning theories and positive youth development models. Both of those are different models of adolescent education that we draw from as we design and integrate that with a Jewish musar-based context for learning. So the first is social emotional learning. So I'm just going to ask you just for a second to just think about becoming B'nai Mitzvah and to think which of these 5 different areas does B'nai Mitzvah education touch? Self-management, self-awareness, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, social awareness. So just you can think for yourself, wow, it's maybe in your own work you focus a little bit more on social awareness. Other people may focus a little bit more on self-awareness. But all of these, when we look at this kind of model, we say, well, what does this mean for somebody who is becoming B'nai Mitzvah? The next slide is really the very similar, but for another school of pedagogy, which is a positive youth development school, mainly developed by Richard Lerner, who is at Tufts University, and that's the person who created this, this particular cluster. But very similar to social emotional learning, you're looking at the qualities of the teenager and you're saying, okay, where do we see these things? Where is character education happening? How do they develop a sense of confidence? Where is their connection to others? How do they feel like they're making a contribution? And the one thing that was added to positive youth development is the caring. And one of the things I like about this particular articulation is that it is about sympathy and empathy for others and a commitment to social justice. One other thing that I didn't mention that is an important piece here is that there are psychologists, including Jeremy Griffith, who argue that age 13 is the awakening of a political consciousness in which a child starts to blame the adults for the problems of the world. And I think, like, for many people who are around teenagers right now, you might hear that loud and clear. So back to Ray Simpson's work here, the task of adolescence. We're not going to go into any of this in depth. What we do in our training is we spend a lot more time learning about these stages and learning how these stages are reflected in the curriculum that we've created. But you can see them right here, and you can imagine to yourself, okay, what here is related to B'nai Mitzvah and B'nai Mitzvah education. So that's just a big overview of what we do in terms of how we think about developmentally appropriate education for Jewish teenagers. We do that in all of our programs. So if you know about some of the work that we do, B'nai Mitzvahs for 6th and 7th graders, Rosh Chodesh and Shevet and Selim are all our 8th through 12th grade programs. Our newest program called Kolenu, which is a feminist fellowship, is really for 11th and 12th graders. It's a feminist leadership program. And in each of our programs, we look at the developmentally specific challenges that are for that grade. And not only for that grade, we think, what's the first semester of that grade and how is that different from the second semester of that grade in terms of development? And then we map our education onto that. So just to give you an example of what that looks like when we start to think about 12-year-olds, here are some of the developmental milestones for those who are starting in 6th grade that we start to pay attention to. And we can't go into all of these right now, but some of them that I think are really, really fascinating are peer vocabulary and slang becomes important, because what you see at this age is the development of peer influence starting to trump the parental influence, and that is really key. And I also love this demand privileges but may avoid responsibilities. That just speaks to me so loudly in a lot of experiences that I've had with this age group. So just to say how this impacts our philosophy about B'nai Mitzvah, when we take this kind of educational approach, our goal is not simply to speak to the 12-year-old, but our goal is to think about this within the family system and create family education around it. And really, our shift that we're trying to make here is to help parents say, being a B'nai Mitzvah is not going from being a boy to a man as it was back in the day. It's about going from being a child to a teenager. And as a parent, it's about going from being a parent of a child to a parent of a teenager. And what does that really mean? And I think that if we do our job as rabbis and educators and cantors, we hope that families feel, oh my God, my community supports me in this transition. They know what's going on. And the education is speaking to this very moment. And to do that, we have to talk about the things that happen in B'nai Mitzvah. Here on this slide, we put things like the family dynamics and expectations, being the center of attention, which is different for every child and very different for introverts and extroverts. The role of friends in B'nai Mitzvah, even the role of friends in Zoom B'nai Mitzvah, and social and gender codes, which are certainly enacted in every photo session that everyone has ever done for their B'nai Mitzvah. So just thinking about where these things are very real for people already and connecting the Jewish education to those things. And then finally, I want to say a little bit about the Jewish teachings that we think about. When you do a deep dive in what is the meaning of B'nai Mitzvah in the Jewish sources, you inevitably come up with a number of texts about pubic hair that you really don't feel comfortable sharing with families of B'nai Mitzvah, and you go, okay, maybe I'm not going to go in that direction. The other thing that comes up in Jewish texts around B'nai Mitzvah is that there's an Breshit Rabbah about Yaakov and Esav when they turn 13, and it says that the two are like a myrtle bush and like a rose bush. And when they hit 13, the rose starts to show its thorns. And that's basically this concept that at age 13, Esav starts his murdering and raping, while Yaakov is like going to the library, something like that. But those are some of the texts that are in the background. So we were thinking, what is a better text? What is a better Jewish teaching to anchor the work that we do? And that's the text that I'm going to introduce now, and we're going to do a little bit of a fun interactive exercise around that text. So on the next slide, we have this beautiful text from Yehuda ben Tema, and this is from Pirkei Avot, but it's generally not used in a B'nai Mitzvah context, and that's what we want to correct. And here the text, I think it's important to just read it, and then we're going to do a little exercise with it. 5 years is the age for the study of Scripture. 10 is the age for the study of Mishnah. 13 is the age for observing the mitzvot. 15 is the age for the study of Talmud. 18 is the age for the wedding canopy. 20 is the age for pursuit. 30, full strength. 40, understanding. 50, giving counsel. 60, mature age. 70, the age for a gray head. 80, the age for super added strength. 90, the age for bending stature. And 100 is the age at which one is as if dead, passed away, and ceased from the world. We obviously know that isn't true because at age 100, my grandmother beat me at Scrabble. but this is what they thought of in the 2nd century.
My grandmother my mom regularly beats me at Scrabble, so I agree with that.
Beautiful. I'm pretty good at Scrabble too, so I have to say that. But she knows all the 2-letter words, and it's like, it's really hard when you have somebody's memorized them all. So this is a wonderful text to ground the conversation about developmental stages and about the age 13 specifically. So what we're going to do now is we're going to give everybody an experience of working with this text for a few minutes and thinking about some of the ages in this text. And Pam, could you just tell them?
Absolutely. So in a minute, I'm going to divide you up into breakout rooms. I'm doing them via the basically random assignment into breakout rooms, just dividing you into groups of 5 or 6. And your job as a group is going to be, one person could be note taker or you all can be note takers, is write down a scrap of paper, 5, 10, right, some of the ages here. Definitely try and get to 13, obviously. And say to yourselves, what is this age for now? What is 5 for? What is 10 for? What is 13 for, right? What actually, right? Because right now it says, 18, what it says here, 18 is the age for wedding. That might not ring true to many of you for today's world. So what is 18 the age for, right? So try to at least get to 5, 13, 15, 18. If you can keep going on to 20, 30, go. Get as far as you can and be as specific as you can. Small, right? Little things. What is the modern version of what these ages are actually for? Someone write them all down, and when we come back, we're going to talk about it a little bit. We're going to go into breakout rooms for probably only around like 6-7 minutes or so, so it's not going to be a huge deep dive, but we want to give you a sense of what this activity looks like. So you all ready? You know what to do? All right. So I'm making rooms. Go team. Leanne, did you not get an invite to join a room? Oh, wait, you're muted. Hold on. You're muted. I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I got a phone call.
Oh, no problem. No problem. I just didn't know if you weren't assigned a room.
I did.
Like if the thing didn't assign you a room. That's fine.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I got bumped from my breakout room earlier than by mistake.
And I didn't join when I'm having lunch, so I'm going to turn off my video. So forgive me, Ben. Okay.
It's okay.
We're back. Welcome back, everybody. Everyone's in a new spot on their squares, right? Oh, that's so like disconcerting. Daniel, you want to hear a little bit from people?
Yeah, we actually were just getting to the last person in our group who was going to say something about age 13, I guess. So, but yes, maybe we'll hear from some other people and then we could go to that. I would love to hear just anybody. What did you come up with in your group? Does anybody want to volunteer to unmute and say a little bit? I see an Abby felt.
Yeah.
Please go for it.
We got some good stuff. So we got up to 15. For 5, we got swimming, asking for what you need, and sharing.
Great.
For 10, we got debate and thoughtful choices. This is my paraphrasing of what people said. For 13, we got sexuality, separation, and tools for mental health. And for 15, we got, this is a big paraphrase, navigating the tension between individuation and conforming, and also preparing for adulthood.
Oh, your group gets an A+. That was really excellent. Does anybody else in any other group want to try to match that? I mean, it's very hard to.
Or for any age.
But no, if anybody have anything different for any of the ages that we might want to hear, let's just see if there's anybody. If you want to put your hand up, I could call on you.
There's some in the chat too.
Hannah, do you want to go for it?
Oh, sure. Okay, so some of this is like just obviously like basic legal definitions of ages, but the ones that weren't, where we were thinking about when kids usually get a cell phone, we said probably around 10-ish, but that depends on the family. Taking public transit alone in the city, it's 11-ish. I know it's a little later in the suburbs. Independence or some form of it seen as an adult in the state, 18. You're kicked off your parents' health insurance at 26. And you said that at least some people stop caring about what people think of them so much around 25 or 30.
It took me till 50, but yeah, I think you're right. These are all wonderful. I just want to add a few of the things in my group, and then we'll move forward, Pam. We had 5 as reading and also just navigating the iPad and the world that is available there. 10 we had as learning family history and expanding a sense of self beyond family to think about community and school. And 13 we talked about moving inward to the self as being like, who am I, as being really core to what we're working on. Anyway, so much, this is such a rich conversation. You can see that the text really sparks so many wonderful ideas, and I really appreciate just this opportunity to have people break up, learn a little bit. Alana, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, just one quick thing. Quickly, and I apologize to my group for sort of leading us astray on this, because we didn't get to the ages, only because at the beginning I sort of pushed back on the use of this text a little bit, thinking that it's a little bit too prescribed for so many people out there who do things at their own time, and that we should be allowing for our kids and our adults to be doing things at their own time. We know plenty 50-year-olds who don't have their driver's license yet, and plenty 2-year-olds who know how to share really well, even though they really shouldn't be learning how to share it. So like, it feels a little too prescribed, especially for, our growing population of folks who have special learning needs, have disabilities, whatever it is, right? We all have different needs, and we all grow and change and learn at different ages and stages. And so I actually don't love this text, only because it's a little bit too forced of an issue, and it sort of feels like, well, oh my God, my kid can't do that when they're 13. Now what do? I don't have a place for myself in this tradition.
I want to lift up your voice and say, absolutely. And that's kind of one of the reasons I love this text, because it says these are the artificial expectations of another time. and it allows us to talk about the artificial expectations of our time. And I really do think like it's important to have the voice of what's wrong with the way that this, I 100% agree with you. Like the developmental process works differently for different people, and that is absolutely key. However, I don't think that we as a society let go of expectations. Even the B'nai Mitzvah itself has a whole set of expectations around it that are based on what we think a typical 12-year-old is going to do. And those things really we need to look at. So I think that your critique is really welcome, and it's really part of like what needs to be in the educator's mind and thinking about whenever we have an ancient text that has a very rigid way of proscribing life, how do we say, what can we learn from this and take from this? And what do we need to adapt to match the reality of the way that we now understand who we are and how we grow? So thank you for your wonderful critique, and we're going to continue now with a little bit more about the program itself.
So I'm going to stop sharing for a second because I don't like that version of share. So what I'm going to try and do in, whatever, 6 minutes or less, is give you a bit of an overview. I'm actually going to do my PowerPoint out of order because of the time. So what I'm going to show you now is just so you understand a little bit of the nuts and bolts of our program. Back up one, there we go. A program overview, which is to say that our B'nai Mitzvah program says every community is going to have their own version of things and want to use this in a different way, and that's totally fine. We have curriculum that is absolutely adaptable to whatever your particular community wants it to be. What we ask is for you to run a minimum of 2 of our family sessions and 4 of our preteen sessions per grade. Everything that we're doing now, for those of you who know we've been doing B'nai Mitzvah for a few years, I am fast and furiously in the process of webifying all of our sessions so that they are written to be used online. In other words, you don't have to like think, oh, how would I do this online? It's written like share the Padlet now, that kind of literally, with all the links and all the things so that it's written for you. And we ask you to do 2 family sessions. There are more than that to choose from. We ask you to do 4 preteen sessions per grade. Most people, I'm going to now, if my mouse will work, which it's not, which is fascinating all by itself. There we go. Here's what our program looks like. In 6th grade, you're looking down the column. There are 4 choices of family sessions, as you can see. B'nai Mitzvah, why am I doing this? Today you are an adult. What does it mean to become a teen? Right, and down. And the same thing with 7th grade sessions. Some of our partners choose to run this program in only 6th grade. Some people choose to run it in only 7th grade. Some people run it in both grades at the same time, 2 trains moving along parallel tracks. And some people, smaller congregations in particular, who don't have enough kids, families in each of these grades to make it work, run a combination of 6th and 7th grade together. And we have a version of an order for you as well. Do not worry about that. We have that going on all over the country. At the moment, we partner with about 65 congregations around the country. It will be likely much more than that in the upcoming year. There is clearly a growing need for this kind of work. And one of the things that, now I'll go backwards, our program does that I want to kind of highlight is that parents and teens are getting to talk to one another in a different kind of way. And you, as the clergy people in your congregations, are giving them the space to do that, which to me, especially in our current climate, is a real value proposition, right? Like why be at synagogue when it's all Zoom? Why be in religious school when it's all Zoom? Well, because this place is giving me somewhere to have important conversations with my kid, to think deeply about what it means to be a parent, to think deeply about what this moment is now that it is no longer what it was going to look like. Right? That's clear. It's not what it's going to look like. As well, we are in development, it's not on the grid yet, of a parent-only session for you all to run with parents about that loss. What did I expect it to look like? What is it not going to look like? How do I let that go? And now turn to embrace what the new possibilities are of what this can look like for me. So we're in the process of writing that. It's our first parent-only session as part of the B'nai Mitzvah program. And what I can tell you is we collect evaluation on every single family session that we run. And last year, we had 664 individual people answer these questions, individual parents, and here are some of the highlights of what they said from a percentage point of view. And for me, I'm going to draw your attention to this one. Today's session helped me feel like a part of a Jewish community that supports me as a parent. Again, there's that value proposition, right? You want them to feel like they are coming to you for something outside of what the norm, quote unquote, has been, because we're in a different kind of world right now. And we need to sort of reposition ourselves in that way. And our B'nai Mitzvah program really can help you do that. The preteens, who we had 520 of them, also answered the surveys for the family sessions they were at. 20% consistently said, I don't know. Have you ever all heard a teenager say, I don't know? Yeah, so 20% of them said that across the board to every question, and yet still 66% said that it helped them understand how B'nai Mitzvah. I was excited by this. 70% said that they made them feel like they're a part of a Jewish community that supports who they are. That's kind of cool, right? The 20% notwithstanding who don't know, and that's what happens with teenagers. But we are really excited by the idea that there are preteens and teens and parents out there that are having this type of conversation. And I can tell you, because I personally have read each and every one of these 500 to 600 evaluations that come in, very often in the free wielding part, where they can write whatever they want. What we hear is, I loved hearing my parent talk about when they were 12 or 13. Or I loved hearing my child talk to his or her peers about how they felt about something, right? They're getting sort of an earshot that they wouldn't normally get in this program. And I think that is really gold to parents. So I'm gonna go back to this. So we are in the process of webifying, like I said, everything you see here. They will be like, you click on them and it gives you the whole session. And we will be doing training online for this program, which will do a much deeper dive into some of the issues that Daniel talked about earlier and walk you through some of the webification. Just so you know, some of the activities you did today are straight from our sessions. The Pir Kelanu came straight from one of our family sessions, the Padlet right from one of our sessions. We wanted to give you an idea of the kinds of things we're doing so that you have a sense of what our program actually looks like in action. But again, all of it is written out for you. Because we have 3 minutes left, I'm just gonna ask if anyone has any questions that they want to ask for the group or just to us, no problem. I can stay on longer if anyone needs, but I want to be wary of time. Are there questions you have about how this works? Cost, sure. The cost of the program is $360 for just our B'nai Mitzvah program to run it. That's access to everything we produced for the year. It is a yearly fee. It doesn't matter whether you're running it in just 6th grade, just 7th grade, or both. It's $360. We know that in this moment, there is a lot of financial stress going on. If that amount, for some of you, you hear $360 and you're like, hey, that's not a bit, that's nothing. And for some of you, you're like, $360, wow. Totally get it. If that is a financial hardship, we'll speak to whoever your regional person is. We have staff that handles each region and work something out. No one should feel like they can't participate in this because of a financial issue. That's not our goal here. We want everyone to access this in whatever way possible. 7th and 8th grade class, okay, let's talk. I'm sure we can work something out. Let's figure out what that looks like. Yes. When will training take place? I'm going back. I skipped that slide. You see, I never should skip anything. Here, click. Here are the dates of training. Just so you're aware, that is an additional fee. Again, if there's an issue, you'll let us know. It is $50 a site for as many people from your team as you send. Yes, we are incentivizing sending a team. We have found through the years that this is our 4th year, that the more people that come to training and understand what needs to happen and really have their hands around this, the more the program is successful in your congregation. So we want you to send as many people as possible, including yourselves on this call, with your educators, with the classroom teachers who would be leading the preteen sessions, everybody. Now that this is online, this used to be in person, Daniel and I would do a little roadshow around the country. Now that this is online, this is much more accessible to absolutely anybody. And here are the the time slots that we're going to be offering it, which I'm going to share the PowerPoint afterwards, so you will get this too. I just want to be able to see all these other things. That's when training lives. Can you register through your website? Yes, we're going to email you all about next steps, but yes, you can also register through our website. It's on a portal. There's a B'nai Mitzvah partner application, so no problem at all. Following, literally, probably already in your inboxes, is a survey about this webinar. It's like 4 questions, I swear. And one of them is, do you want to be contacted by someone because you want to become a partner? Click yes, and make sure you put in your contact information, and you're going to get a call, an email, a carrier pigeon. Someone's going to come and talk to you. Can we watch the training after the fact if we're busy on both those exact dates? So we will be recording the training, I'm sure. We also may be adding more dates, so stay tuned. And so it might still work. How does the curriculum fit into the other programs that you're offering? So the other programs, the Rosh Chodesh and Shevet and Selim, are teenager programs. Those are for 8th grade and up. Those are for groups of teens with a group leader. That is different than these programs, which you, the collective you all, run in your congregations or in your Zoom boxes. That's not the same thing. Does that make sense? If you have further questions about that, I'm happy to elaborate. I think I answered all the questions. Did I miss any?
I think you did a fantastic job.
It's 201, I did it. If you have other questions, this is not the last time that you ever have a chance to ask them. Number 1, on the survey, ask the questions. Believe me, you'll hear from someone about whatever the answer is. And you can always find all of us on our website anyway, and email us, or email back whoever you got the original invitation from, and they will forward it to the right place. Thank you, Bethany. I love the capital enthusiasm. Really, I just
want to say one last word. We didn't say this earlier, but one of the things that we have been thinking about is just the reality of what we're going through as a country right now, and the importance of talking about that with 12-year-olds. So in our session, which is about repairing the world and thinking about what that means, we decided that we wanted to really have a space for teenagers and parents to talk together about what's going on. And we used a framework of chesed, tzedakah, and tzedek as a way to think about those things. And so that's really one of the things that we're going to be highlighting. We're really interested to learn how people do that in the coming year. So that's just one final thing. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. And I really look forward to answering any of your questions.
Yeah, we look forward to partnering with you this year to, add on to the B'nai Mitzvah experience that will be